Okay, great. Well, so this is my family. This is Olivia. She's actually here right now, and she's 3 years old. And my son Dean, he turns 1 year old on the 16th, so in a couple days. And then my beautiful wife Mia, of 5 years. So the story starts. Well, let me just before we get into it, who here actually wants to talk about money? Like 3 people, right? Like, let's be honest. Like, nobody actually enjoys talking about money. It's awkward, it's taboo, it makes people uncomfortable, people get self-conscious. What's that? Well, I'm glad you're here. Maybe you'll take something away from this. Listen, I don't like talking about money either. What I like to talk about is freedom and how money can be used as a tool. That's what I like talking about. I couldn't care less about investment strategies, how much money you actually have. It doesn't matter to me. It's about freedom or self-reliance, as Brother Allen mentioned. So the story begins in 2009. I graduated from HBS, Harvard Business School, with my MBA. That's my dad on the left and my grandpa on the right. 3 generations of Maholics. It was a proud day for the family. So I graduated with a job in the Great Recession, believe it or not, in 2009. I was blessed. And I got a 2x raise from my job I had before I went to HBS. So a 2x pay raise, which led to some interesting decisions. I got a house, 2 cars, including a sports car and a motorcycle. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm living the dream. And 10-year-old me had no idea how rich of a life I would have. The only catch is that I had $102,000 of debt that I graduated with. And I had a $175,000 mortgage. So I was making about $100K, and I had about $300K of debt. For the first 2 years, before I came into my senses, I was making the regular payments, $1,100 a month. And in that time, I paid $26,000, but I only chipped away at $12K of that principal. All right, so $14,000 of my interest went to the bank, not to my loan. And to make matters worse, I didn't like my job. I didn't like the company I was working at. I didn't believe in leadership. I didn't think they had a good strategy. I didn't believe in the products. I didn't think they were any good. And I didn't like the culture. It was very controversial, very confrontational. Every meeting was just a dogfight. And I was like, man, I need this job because I need to keep making these monthly payments, but I'm not having any fun here. So one day I woke up and I started a blog called NoMoreHarvardDebt.com. And I challenged myself to pay off my $90K of student debt in 10 months. My salary was $100K, so after tax, that's like what, like $80K? And that's over 12 months, not 10 months. And so I had no idea where this money was gonna come from. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, Mike Rowe, World's Dirty Jobs. Some of you may have heard of it. He goes around the world just doing jobs nobody else wants to do and entertains people by doing it. I was like, I'm gonna go to Craigslist, I'm gonna do gigs. I'm gonna go do just random things, and I'm gonna do my best to pay this off. I probably won't be successful, but I'm sure I'll entertain some people, and it's gonna be fun. And plus I get to write, and I love writing. So that started on August 29th of 2011, and then 7 months later, March 29th, 2012, I paid it off. So 7 months, I paid it off. I did a lot of things. I sold the second car, I sold the motorcycle, I took on 2 roommates from my 3-bedroom house. Instead of just sitting empty, I rented them out. I pedicabbed in downtown Austin. Alan actually filmed me pedicabbing. I started a landscaping business with a buddy. I stopped going out to dinners and movies. I stopped buying clothes. I did a lot of DIY repairs on my house, on my car. At one point, I kept the convertible, I kept the sports car. I'm a car enthusiast at heart, so that had to stay in the garage. But it was a pretty old vehicle, and I needed to use duct tape to basically seal it up. Instead of buying a new convertible top for $1,000, I used a $5 roll of duct tape from Home Depot and skated by with that. Anyway, I changed my behavior, my emotional self, my mental self, my technical self, how I was actually accounting for the numbers, how money coming in, money coming out, and of course, relational. Radical accountability. I put it all out there, and it's a funny thing, when you put it all out there, when you tell people what you want to do, when you set a goal, things suddenly start happening. So, learned a lot about financial freedom with that venture. And I said, okay, well, I paid off this debt, what now? and my buddy, who I started a landscaping business with, he had worked at my current company 2 years prior. He left, he went to Apple. And he's like, Joe, you got to join Apple. Great products, great leadership, great strategy, and the culture is amazing, super collaborative. And I said, okay, well, I don't need to pay $1,100 a month towards my debt anymore. I interviewed, I got the job, they offered me $95K. And I was like, and at this point I was making $113K at just 2 years, you get, your raises. I was like, can I take an $18,000 pay cut to go to a job and pursue something I might actually enjoy? Resounding yes, like zero debate, zero question in my mind. And so I accepted it. And he was right. Leadership was great, strategy was great, products are great, Apple, hello. And the culture was super collaborative, and I thrived. And that $18,000 salary disparity quickly erased and then eclipsed by an order of magnitude. So had a great career with them for 13 years. My daughter was born in 2022, August. Changed my life in certain ways, but in other ways, my life stayed the exact same. I continued to work 60-hour work weeks. That didn't change. I continued to dedicate and commit myself to my job, to my career, to that aspect of my life. Olivia and I never really got the opportunity to get very close to each other during that time until my son was born. So my son was born, Dean, was born in January 25, and I took off 3 months of paternity leave. And so Mia was taking care of Dean around the clock. I became Olivia's primary caretaker. So instead of doing 0 bedtimes, 0 wake-ups, 0 daycare drop-offs, 0 daycare pickups, I was doing it all the pickups, all the drop-offs, all the bedtimes, all the wake-ups. And we became very, very close. To the point where, at one point when Mia could start doing bedtimes again, Olivia asked for me specifically. She said, come on, Dad, come on upstairs. We're going to bed. And that was a really special moment for me. These are photos that we took during those 3 months when I realized that I was rich in money, but absolutely poor in time. None of my time went to anything I actually truly cared about. And so I said, man, I need to make a change. Something's got to give. Kind of like the way I felt back in 2011 when I wanted to pay off the student debt. I said, something's got to change. So we looked at our assets and we're like, okay, we've got enough money to pay off the house. Let's do that. Got rid of the mortgage. Okay, we've got enough money saved up for retirement where by the time it compounds, the interest compounds, by the time I'm 65, we'll have a nest egg that will sustain our lifestyle. The investments will be throwing off enough cash that we can just take some money out and pay for what we need to pay for. Then we looked at just like cash left over, and it was about 2 years of living expenses. And I was like, you know what? I think we can afford to just take a step back, slow down a little bit, maybe look for a 40-hour-a-week role, take a pay cut, and just kind of see where this goes. But my heart was not in it. I looked at opportunities around Austin, I looked at opportunities around Apple, and I just wasn't into the job search at all. Nothing seemed interesting, nothing was speaking to my heart. It was totally indifferent, totally neutral. It was very forced. And I kept coming back to this email. When I paid off the student debt, it went viral. So I was interviewed by CNN Live, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, a bunch of other, Huffington Post, a bunch of Dave Ramsey, for those of you who know that financial guru. They all picked up the story and ran with it. And so I ended up getting a lot of email from folks saying that they were inspired. And I kept coming back to those emails because while the 15 minutes of fame was fun, the lasting memories was of those emails that I received from folks who said that they were inspired. And here's an example of one of those emails. This one's from Jeremy, who did PT, physical therapy, and he went $200,000 in debt. And he said, the third paragraph down, reading about your journey to become debt-free is not only inspiring, but after learning of your efforts, I actually feel as if a weight has been lifted in knowing that overcoming debt or modern slavery is possible. I was like, that's awesome, inspiring him. But then he's like, I'd love to hear back from you as any and all input would be appreciated. Well, this was in June 2015. I was probably in the middle of a product launch or something with Apple, and I just filed this email away. I didn't do anything with it. But this is one of the emails I looked at when I was figuring out what are next steps, like what's something that's gonna make my heart sing? What's something that's gonna be a passion of mine? And again, looked at the finances. We had already determined that we could take a step back, and so that's exactly what I did. On October 2nd, I sent this exact letter to my boss after we met in a room, and I said, after much reflection, I've decided it's the right time to step away and begin a new chapter, one that allows me to spend more time with my family and pursue a long-standing passion. And so I launched the DAD plan, or the drive away debt plan, where I basically help people pay off their debt. We launched October 16th, which was my last day of work at Apple. I opened it to a small number of clients on a sort of a beta testing platform. And these folks are doing the work. They're doing the exercises, they're watching the videos, we're meeting regularly. And it's been really fun and rewarding and challenging to help these folks with their finances. So Alan asked me here on that note, to come out here and just kind of give a blurb about what I've learned since 2011 when I transformed my life financially. So we'll get into it. So 10 things about money that can change your life. I decided this was a little loosey-goosey, kind of vague and ambiguous. So I'm gonna make it a little bit more concrete for you all. So did a calling an audible here, and we're gonna call this one 9 Steps to Buy Freedom or Self-Reliance. It's the same exact concept. So what are the 9 steps? Step 1, pick the right major for the right price. I'm sure some of you go to BYU where it's very, very reasonably priced. I just used a local example here. UT, cost of attendance annually before financial aid or scholarships, about $30K, $120K for a 4-year program. If you decide to go for one of these majors, you're gonna be fine. As long as you save a decent amount of your salary, you're gonna pay off this $120K very, very quickly. It's the other part of the list, the bottom part of the list, where you might make $22,000 if you go into visual and performing arts. The funny thing is that these majors on the left, like to some those are really interesting, but to some maybe they're not. And then the ones all right are like inarguably really, really interesting, like TV, music, psychology, like all the stuff that's super interesting, right? And that we love to learn about. The problem is it doesn't really pay the bills. So there's 2 options here that I would recommend for you. First one is go after the majors on the left. And if you don't like it, in 15 years, if you save, you can quit that and go do something you love. And you'll have enough money that you don't even need to do something that pays you. You can just do something that you love. So you kind of eat your vegetables for 15 years and then go live your dreams and live your values. Alternatively, if you really like these majors on the right, I would encourage you to find that financial aid, apply to scholarships, or just choose a cheaper school. There's a couple good options there. I just would strongly encourage you all to think about the cost-benefit analysis as you're making these decisions, because they could affect you for the rest of your life. Okay, so that's step 1, just choose the right major for the right price. Step 2, befriend your 65-year-old self. Somebody tell me what has been top of mind for you this weekend. What do you keep thinking about? Anybody, just shout it out. School, right? School, like your test that's coming up this week, maybe a paper that's due, something like that. Yeah, we're thinking about what's happening like the next week, right? Well, I'm convinced that there are 3 groups of people in this world. There's group 1, live for the moment. Does anybody know who this is? Is this Brother Grayson? That's right, this is Brother Grayson. Live for the moment. All right, then there are folks that save for a rainy day. This is Brother Grayson, aged about 40 years by AI. And then there's the 3rd group that they don't live for the moment, they live in the moment while they save for a rainy day. So there's this really cool experiment back in 2011. It wasn't reported in the mainstream population until 2015. But UCLA Anderson did some research. They hooked people up to an MRI machine. And they showed them 3 different sets of photos. Photos of their friends and family, photos of complete strangers, and photos of themselves aged 20 to 30 years. These images elicited these visuals elicited 2 different brain images. The first one was familiarity, and the other one was this person's a stranger. So when the pictures of their friends and family showed up, what do you think they saw with the brainwaves? Familiarity. When the pictures of the strangers popped up, what did they see? Stranger danger. What about when the photos of themselves aged 20 to 30 years showed up? What do you think those brainwaves looked like? Familiarity or stranger danger? Stranger danger, exactly. So basically from Hal Hershfield, when people think of themselves in the future, it feels to them like they're seeing a different person entirely, like a stranger on the street. And this has major implications for how we live our lives. Major implications. It means you don't eat as healthy, you don't save up for retirement, you don't work out regularly, because that person in the future, when you're 65, they don't exist. You don't even know who they are. You don't care about them. And so step 2 is to not be a stranger to yourself, because eventually you will be 65. I appreciate living for the moment. Living in the moment, equally as important. It's the ability to find both of those that will really set you on the right path. All right, step 3, step off the hedonic treadmill. When we get something for the first time, we're super excited by it, right? When we open up that gift, when we dig into it, we tear off the wrapping paper, like our pulse quickens, you know, like our heart rate goes up, and we're like, man, this is awesome. You're so excited about it. But that feeling, does it last? The novelty wears off, and it happens pretty quickly. And so there's this study from 1971 where they basically summarized or concluded that people quickly return to a baseline level of happiness despite positive or negative life changes. And so just, let me see if this guy works. Okay, cool. So let's say you get married and you're super excited in the days and years, the years leading up to it, and it happens, but then guess what? You return to a baseline level of happiness. Now, widowhood, you're married to the love of your life, they die, and somehow you're able to recover from that terribly tragic event. This is amazing. So when you get like a video game or a new pair of jeans or even a car, and you think like, oh man, I'm gonna be happy for the rest of my life because now I have this, you won't be. You simply won't be. And nothing you buy will actually change your baseline level of happiness. And if you just accept that right now, it's gonna change your buying behavior for the rest of your lives. You just accept that now. I've made so many bad financial decisions. I once dropped $30,000 on the Dodge Viper, spent $10,000 to get it fixed up, and sold it for $30,000 3 months later because it was too loud and I basically went deaf. I'd literally go to bed and like my ears would be ringing at night because the thing was like, it was cool for like a week, literally a week. But baseline happiness quickly returned. This is not new, by the way. 1971, tell you what, in 500 BC, Siddhartha Gautama, his insight was that no matter what the mind experiences, it usually reacts with craving, and craving always involves dissatisfaction. The mind always craves, and it always leads to dissatisfaction. You cannot stop the craving. So when the mind experiences something distasteful, it craves to be rid of the irritation. So widowhood, obviously distasteful, it craves to be rid of that really terrible feeling of widowhood. And so that baseline happiness returns. Your mind just makes it happen. On that same note, when the mind experiences something pleasant, like getting married to the love of your life, it craves that pleasure will remain and intensify. But as we know, it doesn't, right? It goes back down to that baseline level of happiness. Therefore, the mind is always dissatisfied and always restless. Pretty glum, right? Pretty glum. It's like, oh man, I'm never gonna, like, this baseline level of happiness, I'm never gonna be able to like fix it. There are a few things you can do. Live below your means. Just like accept the fact that even if you have the money for that new video game, for those new jeans, that new car, just because you have the money doesn't mean you have to go spend it and buy it. You can just save it, invest it, let it grow, and then eventually you'll be able to quit your job and do something that you actually like to do, which probably will actually impact your baseline level of happiness, completely changing, rewriting your future. I have to feel like that wasn't part of the study, but I have to feel like that will have some long-term impact to your life. Meditate. So meditation, all it is, I was super intimidated by it. I didn't start meditating until 2018, late 30s. And it's super simple though. All you do is you just focus on your breath. Count the breaths in 1, out 2, up to 10, then you start over. What you're gonna notice is that your mind will race. You'll start craving something. You'll crave about how that person at school made you feel terrible about yourself, or that test that you have coming up tomorrow has got you really nervous. Your mind's gonna race because there's this voice inside our heads that tells us things. It makes us feel certain ways. And so the act of meditation, you focus on your breath and you notice your mind drifting away. You bring it back to your breath and you get really good over time at identifying these cravings. Instead of just listening to that voice on default and just accepting whatever it says, it uses actual critical thinking to determine, wait, is this voice making any sense right now? Does any of it matter? And so meditation is a super powerful technique to basically identify those cravings and train the brain that they don't matter. All right, practice gratitude. Basically, just be actively grateful for what you have in your life, your health, your family, your loved ones, your LDS community. Just embrace them and just be actively grateful for what you already have and what's already contributing to your baseline level of happiness. And the last one here is just choose happiness. Like when we wake up, we can choose to be sad, mad, or happy. It's so much easier just to choose happiness and go throughout the day with a positive attitude. Obviously easier said than done, but the choice actually is ours. Everything that happens around us, it impacts us, and we decide what to do with those feelings that are going on around us, the actions of others, what others people say, what others do and say about us. Okay, so that is step 3, step off the hedonic treadmill. Oh, live below means this is going to help your parents out too, by the way. They won't need to buy you the jeans, the car, this and that. And then when you grow up and you think back to your childhood and be like, well, I didn't get the jeans, the car, video games, or anything like that, you won't feel terrible not spoiling your own children. And your parents can actually take that money and invest it and then help you pay for college. And so it's a win-win. Step 4, stop comparing, accept yourself. There is a quote from Theodore Roosevelt that says, comparison is the death of joy. And this absolutely applies to the way I perceive life, is when I start comparing myself to other people, my joy kind of gets diminished. And so I do my best not to compare myself with other people. And I've got a few techniques here to do this. The first one is just stop comparing yourself to others. There are people who have more money than you, more friends than you, be more athletic than you are, but their family might not be as loving. They might not love themselves as much. There's gonna be puts and takes. And at the end of the day, like, it all kind of just regresses to the mean. Like we all have things that we're really good at. We all have things that we're not so good at. And if we start comparing ourselves to things that we're not good at compared to someone who is good at them, I promise you that there are deficits that they have that you easily triumph over. So I'd encourage you just to stop comparing yourself to others. A few tips for this. Volunteer and serve others, get outside your bubble. So 2 quick stories on this. I went to University of Michigan. I volunteered at the Children's Hospital every Thursday. I would go to the hospital feeling sorry for myself. Oh, this weather is so cold, it's 20 degrees after I ride my bike to the hospital. Oh, I did really poorly. I was on the rowing team. Oh, I did really poorly at practice today. I'm not gonna be in the top boat. Man, I really did poorly on that exam. I got, a B-. Everything would just be like super, like craving craving better weather, craving better performance on the rowing team, craving better grades. And then I meet these children who are, this is overnight. So these are children who are really ill, fighting some very serious conditions, meeting parents who are distraught beyond belief. And every time I left, the weather, I didn't even need to wear a jacket. Like the weather didn't bother me. The test, the rowing performance, like I could not have cared less about that because I was rowing from Michigan, I was studying at Michigan, I had my health, and there were people much younger than I who didn't. And it was a wake-up call every Thursday. Of course, over the next 7 days, I'd lose sight of that, then go back and be reminded. But eventually, you just kind of inherently become more grateful for what you already have. Working at Apple, surrounded by millionaires, you get in this little bubble where everybody has the really nice vacations, the really big house, the really nice cars. You're driving to the parking garage, you're like, wow, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, all these really beautiful cars. And you think that's like normal, and like that's just how people are, because you lose sight of the fact that there are so many other people in this world. And then I started going to a soup kitchen and volunteering and serving food to people who didn't even have a home. And so I went there like, oh, I wish I made more money. I wish I had a better car. I wish I had more friends. I wish I had better vacations. And then you go and serve people who don't have any of that. And when you leave, you do not think about any of that. Vacations, cars, clothes, friends, like none of that matters because you have a place to lay your head down at night. Whereas there are a lot of people who don't. And so it's very eye-opening. And so that's one way to stop comparing yourself to folks who have more than you on certain levels. Establish your values and spend accordingly. Expose your hidden values and check your spending. So just establish what your values are. What's important to you? What's important to you? Like what you truly care about. And I got tripped up on this. When Olivia was born, I went from my 2-door sports car to, I had to get a 4-door car. So I bought an Audi, just like everybody else at Apple. And I justified by saying, well, I really value adventure and I want it to be a thrill every time I drive my car. Just because I'm going from a sports car to a four-door car, like I still want to have fun when I drive. And then, I quit Apple because I wanted a deeper connection with my daughter. I valued a connection with my daughter, and I quit Apple and I had 2 years of living expenses. If I hadn't bought the Audi, I would have had a longer runway. But I bought the Audi because I justified it with a sense of adventure. In reality, I bought it because I also valued recognition. I didn't mind that people saw me getting outside, driving up to work in this flashy car, getting out of this car in a grocery parking lot. I wanted to be recognized for my contributions, what I had done. I'd worked so hard to achieve this, and I wanted to be recognized. It was something I valued. But then when I came to my senses and wanted to have a deeper connection with my daughter, in other words, when that value of recognition got replaced by connection, I was stuck with this really expensive vehicle because at that point it had already depreciated by tens of thousands of dollars. So I would encourage you to just come to grips with what your values are and then be super honest about what your hidden values are and make sure that your spending is aligned with the values you actually want to live and not with the values that you're subconsciously living. And the third thing here is just be skeptical of every single thing you see on social media. The guys driving Ferraris and Lamborghinis, probably have debt, right? Or they got the car through some nefarious means. We don't know, and you never want to judge someone, but at the same time, just be skeptical and kind of take everything with a grain of salt. Don't just say wow, this person's got it all. Because again, when you compare yourself to others, you don't know exactly what they have. You don't have a full inventory of all their pros and all their cons. You see one thing. You see what they want you to see. You don't see anything else. And that can really mess with your head and cause you to spend all kinds of money to kind of keep up with the Joneses, right? Y'all have heard that saying before. And it's such a vicious cycle, and it leads nowhere because our happiness, it's always going to be the same. And then last thing here is just practice radical self-acceptance. Just accept yourself no matter what. Kristen Neff has really done a lot of work in this space. She's got a great book called Self-Compassion. I like to call it self-acceptance. I can relate to that word a little bit better than self-compassion. But it's really powerful stuff when you just say, I don't really care what these people think of me, how they're living their lives. I accept myself. And a lot of power can come from that. All right, step 5. Got a little bit more time left. Seek highest value, not lowest cost. Anybody shopping for a car right now? Yeah, okay. Are you looking for the cheapest vehicle? Do you have any criteria for your car search? I know you didn't have it for your college search, but what about your car search? Okay. What are you looking at in the car? Yes, perfect. Something that's not going to break down. So if you buy the cheapest car you can find, is there a good chance it's going to break down? There is. Some of the parents are going to hate me in the room for what I'm about to say, but trust me, in the long term, it'll work out. Let's say that the Honda Civic can go 200,000 miles. And at 200,000 miles, things start breaking on it and cost a lot of money. And so you're like, okay, I still like the Honda Civic. It's a reliable vehicle. 200,000 miles is a ton of miles. What's out there? Well, let's look at 2018. You can get this beauty for $21,500, only 32,000 miles. It's not nearly broken in for a Honda. It's got another 168,000 miles that it can go. So it's going to cost you about 13 cents per mile as you drive that car. Not much. You got this guy, 2018, $13,000. It's actually $8,000 cheaper than the first car. It's quite a bit cheaper. However, it has 183,000 miles on the odometer. It's getting to the point where it's going to require a lot of work. I was looking up some repair costs for a 2018 Honda Civic, the CVT, the transmission. That's a $5,000, $6,000 job right there. So that $8,000 that you just saved quickly goes away. But then you've got to worry about the cooling system, the suspension, all the other odds and ends that go towards making a car roadworthy. You could literally spend $16,000, $17,000 to get it operating like this one up top that costs $21,000. So seek highest value, not lowest cost. This is just a nice way of saying don't be cheap. A lot of words that people use, the word that most people use is frugal. Be frugal, not cheap. And I think there's a lot of power in that because in the long term, you can save a lot of money. All right, set dollar goals and check monthly attainment. this is another way of saying set a budget. I just didn't want to use the word budget because people hear the budget and they immediately tune out and like, I don't want to set a budget. But like, it's important. Let's see why. So I tried to put myself in your shoes. I don't know how good of a job I did here. I asked Alan to chin check me on this, but he didn't come back with much criticism, so I just ran with it. But this is a $500 monthly budget for someone, 16 to 18. They're spending money on gas, meals out with their friends, movies, a hobby, clothes. So they're saying, okay, $500, how much I'm gonna spend? This is super easy to do. Y'all could do this in 10 minutes, right? Just like project out how much you're gonna spend. And then you can spend another like 15 minutes saying, okay, how did I actually do at the end of the month? I came in under on gas, a little bit over on meals, under on movies, over on hobby, slightly over on clothes. I was within $15 of my budget. And now you know how you're doing on that goal. You can make it more powerful by turning it into a cash flow statement by simply doing two things. Add your starting cash and add how much money you expect to make. So let's say you start with $1,000 in your savings account and you've got a job where you make $600. So you have 1,000, you add 600 to it, now you've got 1,600 bucks. You take 500 out for these expenses and you have a positive $100 cash flow. And if your budget looks the exact same for all 12 months of the year, which obviously it won't, but just for the discussion here, let's say it does, then you can expect your cash flow to increase by $1,200 at the end of the year. And now you've got a sense for where your money's going. Whereas you were flying blind before you did this, you had no idea how much you'd be making, what you'd end up with, how much you'd have left over for Christmas shopping at the end of the year. Now at least you have a better sense for it. So a few other things you could do here is define the expense types. Discretionary versus non-discretionary. Discretionary, things at your discretion. These are costs that you don't have to incur, but you do because they make life fun, such as movies, hobby. Again, you don't have to have a hobby, you don't have to go to the movies, but they make life interesting and fun. So you do them at your discretion. I use gas here, and gas is actually both a discretionary and a non-discretionary expense. Gas to go out with your friends to go to the movies, that's discretionary. You don't have to use that gas because you don't have to go to the movies to survive. But non-discretionary, if you drive your car to school and use gas to get to school, school's a requirement, and so that gas is non-discretionary. You have to use that gas. So that's two expense types. The other one's variable versus fixed. Again, using the example of gas. How much gas I consume is a function of how many miles I drive. So it's variable. It varies based on mileage. You can try to predict it based on historicals, how much you're going to spend on gas. But it's a whole lot easier to predict how much your Netflix subscription is because that expense is fixed. It's the same exact expense every single month until they jack up the rates, which I think Netflix is like $30 a month now. It used to be like 17. Anyway, so that's variable versus fixed. And then recurring versus non-recurring. Gas, once again, that's a recurring expense. As long as you drive over 100 miles a month, you're going to end up paying for gas. But Christmas gifts are obviously non-recurring. And so why do I share these expense types with you? The first one, discretionary versus non-discretionary, so you can see what money you have to spend versus what money you don't have to spend. Variable versus fixed, so you can see where your flexibility is. If I drove fewer miles, could I save money? Yes. And then recurring versus non-recurring, this is so that you don't get blindsided by expenses at the end of the year for Christmas, for example, or other costs that you incur on a non-recurring basis. All right. Put your savings in the market, not the bank. Return equals principal times 1 plus the interest rate to the number of years. This is basically saying if I put $1,000 in the stock market and I multiply it by rate of return, raised to the number of years, then I will get X dollars of money. You guys are like, what are you even talking about? Let me give you an example. Okay, so year one, you've got $10,000 and you're gonna invest it in just the S&P 500, the 500 biggest public companies in the US. Rate of return there, you can expect to get about 7%, if not more. You do that for 1 year, you get $10,700. You just leave your money in there. You just buy VOO on an E-Trade or Schwab account, and in 1 year, you'll have $700 more. Keep that money in your account, don't touch it, and guess what? You're gonna go through that 7% increase again, and you're gonna get $11,500. And this is very important, don't take that money out. Leave it in there. Fight the hedonic treadmill, don't compare yourself to others, leave the money in there. And you will get $12,250. Leave that money in there, get $13,100. So on and so forth until 10 years later, you're at 19,671. You just made almost $10,000 by doing literally nothing. I know, 6'7", right? And that's what that looks like. It's a slight curve, right? It's not completely linear. It's a slight curve. It's exponential because of the exponential function right here. Now, let's just say you don't believe in the market. You just want to put your money under a mattress or put it in a 0.1% savings account at Chase, Bank of America, something like that. Well, you take that, get $10,000, you put $700 in your mattress, jam it in there. Take that $10,700, leave it under your mattress, jam another $700 in there, and I heard $11,400. And you're like, look at you. I'm basically making the same amount. Like, you made 49 bucks more than me. That's nothing. And so you're just like, I'm doing good. Let me add another $700 under that mattress, 12,100. Let me do it again, 12,800. You're like, oh, okay, we're starting to see $300 disparity. Interesting. Anyway, keep doing this and doing this. And you're going to end up with $17,000. And that looks like just a straight line, just one for one. Key takeaway here, that you got 20K, it only required 10K from you. In this other example, you got $17,000 and all $17,000 came from you. Maybe Chase gave you like $100, but it's nominal. And so the key takeaway here is that you get $10,000 by investing. It's free. Savings accounts are the absolute enemy. Like, do not save your money. Invest it. This is why. And now you're probably like, well, wait, we're 7%. This is voodoo. This is magic. I don't believe you. Like, what are you talking about? Well, here's the S&P 500, and you can buy basically the S&P 500 biggest companies in the U.S. You can buy a share that has a tiny little slice of each one of those for like 60 or 70 bucks on E-Trade. You can open a brokerage account for $0 right now. Put $100 in it, you can get one share of VOO and get started with investing. And in the past 5 years, 14% return. Past 10 years, 14% return. And since 2000, an 8% return. And that included some really, really bad years here. The thing to keep in mind here is that it's time in the market, not timing the market. For example, you could be like, well, this is going to be a good year. I can feel it. I'm going to dump all my money in here. And if you're investing in 2013, you're right. If you put 10 grand in the market, you'd walk away with 3 grand at the end of the year. Pretty good. But what if you thought 2008 was going to be a good year? You'd lose $3,800 in 12 months, gone. So time in the market, not timing the market, is what counts when you're investing. All right, we've got 2 left. 8, marry someone who also sees money as a tool. This one's super clear, cut and dried. Financial disagreements, number 1 reason for divorce. Money tears people apart. If your financial house is not in order, your marriage probably isn't in order either. So marry someone who has similar thoughts and ideas and a philosophy about money that you do. And then, number 9, live your dreams and values. This is basically the buy freedom part. This is the 9th step. Most people can retire early. Your savings rate is what matters, not how much you make. Kind of counterintuitive, right? Wouldn't you expect, like, if you make a bunch of money, then you should probably be able to retire sooner than the guy who makes a lot less money? You would think so, right? Let me walk you through the numbers, though. Family A here, they make $150K. They save 25% of it. Good for them. They're saving $37,500 every single year, which means they're spending about $113K. To reach financial independence, or FI for short, they need 25 times their annual spend. By the way, some of this is going to go over your heads, and that's totally okay. We're going to send the deck out to the leaders at the end of this, or probably tomorrow morning. Just hang on to this, and maybe like in 5 to 10 years revisit it, and some of the things will probably make a little bit more sense. But I know that you are also very smart, so most of you are actually probably getting this pretty easily. 25 times the annual spend, $2.8 million. That's how much you need. And why do you need $2.8 million? Well, as we just saw, the S&P is throwing off 8% every year, right? So if you just take 4% out of that account, you're not even touching your principal. You're just taking the return. So that 2.8 million just sits there and it keeps earning at 8%. And so if you take off 4%, your investment, your 2.8 million never gets touched. It doesn't even know that that's happening. It doesn't even feel it. And that 4% supports your $113,000 lifestyle. Years to financial independence, 32. And we'll look at the formula that gets you there, but it's 32 years. Example B, family B, they make $400K, big ballers. They save 10%, which is $40K, which is more than family A, so they're doing pretty good. But they spend $360K, the vacations, the second house, 10 cars, private schools, just all the things that require 360K every year. And because they're on the hedonic treadmill and they don't live below their means, or they do by like 10%, they have to keep on spending 360K to feel a certain way, or they think they do anyway. And so it takes them 51 years to reach F5. So if you're like 22 and you're making 400K out of the gate, which is unlikely, you'll be 73 by the time you retire. Not good numbers. So the formula here, you might recognize it. You've got your savings, the 37,500 times 1 plus R to the end. That's the same exact formula we just saw. And then to make it a geometric series, and actually, like, if you were to invest 37,500 per year and then grow that for the number of years leading up to your financial independence, then this is the formula you get. Doesn't really matter. All you have to remember is this: 5% savings, 66 years. You will basically never achieve financial independence. But if you say 50%, you'll achieve it in 14 years. So to my folks who choose the major, maybe they're not really excited about, but it pays like 70 grand out of the gate. Do that for 14 years, so you're 22. Graduate in 14 years at 36. When you're 36, you've got millions saved up. You can literally do whatever you want. You don't even need to make money. That's the crazy thing. So these are the 9 steps. I would encourage you to teach them to your parents, because a lot of people don't know about this stuff. I promise you. I promise you. And eventually, teach it to your kids and create that generational wealth, centuries, decades, centuries down the road. I do have some homework for you all. Get to know your older self. So go to this website, upload a picture of yourself. It's actually free for the first image. You can only do 1 image and you have to buy like a trial. So use the right headshot. Write a letter to this person and say what you want for them physically, emotionally, spiritually, and of course, financially. Set this letter aside, and I would encourage you on every 5th birthday, when you're 20, when you're 25, when you're 30, read this letter to yourself. Remind yourself about the 65-year-old stranger who at that point won't be a stranger to you anymore. Start a brokerage account with $10, $100, it doesn't matter, whatever you can afford. You could literally go into E-Trade tonight, wire some money, or not wire, but just do a simple transfer from your bank account. And you could buy any one of these index funds. You might experience a 38% loss your first year. It's unlikely. Who knows what kind of economy we're in right now? Does anybody? I don't know. Or you might see a 10% return. But if you leave that money parked there, I guarantee you that $100 will turn to $1,000. It's just a matter of time. So many people are like intimidated by investing. It's not that hard. People get intimidated about investing because they think they have to pick the right stock. Like, oh man, if I picked Apple like 20 years ago, I'd be like a billionaire by now. That's like 3 people that knew Apple was going to do that well. Like, lower the expectations for yourself. Just go for an index fund. It's super basic. Like, honestly, if you compare like just your amateur investor like me to like a hedge fund, like people that get paid millions of dollars to make really smart financial picks, stock picks, like the performance is about the same. A lot of research backs this up. So do not be intimidated by investing. There's really nothing to it. If you do options, if you do calls, like that's where things get really dicey. But you don't need to. Like you don't need to. That's the power of compounding. Set a budget, measure it monthly, write down 3 gratitudes daily for 1 week. When I'm drifting off to sleep, something that helps me get to sleep is just think about what I'm thankful for. Start in the morning and I work my way through the day, and by the time I get to the evening, I'm like asleep. Super effective. Meditate 5 minutes daily for 1 week. Just try it. Headspace app. I thought about meditating for like 30 years and then I finally did it. The Headspace app makes it super accessible. You should give it a shot. And then step 6, just log off for social media for 1 week. Just that comparison thing. This will make it really easy because then you're going to stop seeing all the garbage that you are fed in your newsfeed every single day. If you're choosing colleges and majors, collegesimply.com tells you how much it costs for a program and then what you can expect to earn based on student data, actual data, for a first year salary for those majors. And then lastly, at dinner this week, just teach one of these 9 steps to your parents, just to kind of have a conversation, have a dialogue about finances. Okay, we did it. We're done. Thanks, everyone.